Welcome to London Borough of Lambeth's fostering webinar. This is the first that we've ever done it, so we're quite excited about how we're going to come across and how you will view us. My name is Yvonne Williams, and I am the team manager for recruitment and assessment of foster carers. So we hope that after this event that some of you will consider it seriously and come back to the team and let us know whether you have any more questions or whether you have any more thoughts, and perhaps apply to be foster carers, which would be wonderful. We're really wanting to thank you for taking the time out of your precious evening to come spend with us and listen to our presentation and hopefully ask questions that you've always wanted to ask if you've ever thought or considered fostering in the past. And obviously there's an opportunity for you to post your questions through to us. We'll try and answer as many as we can. And if you wish, you can ask those questions anonymously. Okay. The one thing I need to say is that Lambeth is desperately in need of more foster carers. We have quite a lot of our children. I would say probably around 60% of our children are in private fostering agencies. The remaining amount are in in-house placements. And we really, really need to bring those children back in-house to foster carers who belong to Lambeth, who want to foster Lambeth children. So I would really want to help you see that actually this is a really important job we're asking people to consider, that these children really need you, whoever you are out there, need you to put yourselves forward and to think about caring for a child who needs that stability and security in their life in order for them to reach their full potential. But firstly, there is a journey that you have to take. And the journey is how we get to approval. So I would like to hand you over to one of my colleagues, Suzanne, who is going to talk you through the journey of becoming a foster carer.
My name is Suzanne Olsen. I'm one of the assessing social workers in the team. I'm just trying to bring up this slideshow for you. Okay. So I have a number of slides that I'm going to talk through that you should be able to see. Right, so I'll begin. I think a good place to begin is with this statement, which is I think quite lovely. Our foster carers believe that children and young people growing up in Lambeth deserve to have everything they need to grow and thrive, no matter what their circumstances. Fostering, or the term fostering, means when you are looking after someone else's child because their own parents are unable to do so. And there are many reasons why a child cannot live with their own parents, but when that happens, the local council is asked to help by finding the child a home. And you might have heard the expression, children looked after. And this means that it means children coming into the care of the local council. So they're looked after by the local council. And when that happens, we, the local council, ask for foster carers to look after the children for a period of time. So being a foster carer is many faceted, and I'm going to go through some of the key things that foster carers do. On a basic level, they provide day-to-day care, having particular regard to the demands on the child of being separated from their families, which is challenging for them. Foster carers provide a safe and caring environment to ensure that children are kept safe from harm and abuse. And also foster carers provide a welcoming home environment for that child. Foster carers take part in implementing the child care plan. So every child that is looked after has a plan for the best way to meet their needs. Foster carers promote health, growth and development of the child, with particular emphasis on health and educational achievement. Foster carers ensure that looked after children are encouraged positively to develop an understanding of their origins, their religion, and the culture that they come from. Foster carers enable young people who are moving into semi-independent accommodation to do so in a positive manner, which means foster carers help to prepare a young person for semi-independent living by helping them develop the life skills that they need to do so successfully. Foster carers work as part of a team with Lambeth professionals and with the team of other professionals around the child or the young person, and to work within Lambeth's policies, procedures, and guidance. Foster carers attend and participate actively in all meetings and appointments relating to the child or young person as required. And also, we encourage foster carers to take up appropriate training opportunities and to encourage foster carers to recognise the benefit of continued training, which moves on to the next slide of training and support. And training and support is hugely important as it helps foster carers to develop the skills and knowledge that will support them to be the best they can be as foster carers and to manage the situations that will arise while they're fostering. Training is offered by Lambeth from the beginning of your time as an approved foster carer. We have a rolling program of training. Some of it's mandatory and some of it's optional. So you can choose courses of particular interest to you. And learning can be accessed in many ways. It could be in a classroom setting, one-to-one with your supervising social worker, or online. So the next thing I need to say is that because of COVID-19, we're not currently running our classroom-based training. Just because it's not safe to do so at this time. However, we do have a really comprehensive online training courses available to foster carers, and it's also really important that a foster carer is allocated to a supervising social worker, and it's that relationship that can provide quite a rich experience of training and support. The fostering support team runs activities for fostering families throughout the year. Foster carers become members of the Fostering Network, which is a national fostering organisation that some of you might have heard of. And also too, in Lambeth, we have regular support groups for foster carers where they meet and discuss issues. And we have the Lambeth Foster Carer Association, and you'll hear a little bit more about that later on. Okay, and Yvonne was talking about the journey, and so I'm going to bullet point that for you. And the journey begins, like most journeys, with a small step. So if you've given some thought to becoming a foster carer and you'd like more information or a chat to discuss it, you can call us, you can complete our online form, or email us, and then we get back to you within a couple of days. And for many of you, some of you have done that already, and some of you are doing that this evening by attending our webinar. And the next step normally would be we would arrange for a home visit. And because of COVID-19, we're not arranging home visits at this time. And the purpose of the home visit is to get to know you a little bit more, speak to you more in depth about fostering and answer your questions that you might have. And we complete a questionnaire at that point. So we're doing the work of the home visit via telephone conversations and video calls where we can manage it. So we're doing the work virtually at this moment. So at that early stage in the journey, we need to understand whether or not the individual who's making the inquiry can meet our practical criteria to become a foster carer, and to look at how fostering could potentially impact upon your own life and family life, given the time and the commitment that the role requires. Next in the journey is we run a course called Skills to Foster, and this is specifically for people who are considering becoming a foster carer, and it's to help them get a better picture of what's involved. And normally that's a 3-day course that we run in a group environment, but because of COVID-19, we're not currently running the Skills to Foster course, but we'll have to find creative ways to include the material from the course in the assessments that we do with foster carers. And so one of the big things that happens on the journey is an assessment. Your assessing social worker will be doing an assessment with you, and it's a wide-ranging exercise. So part of it is to carry out checks and references, which may influence the outcome of which may influence whether or not you can foster. For example, we ask you to complete a health check and a criminal record check. And a full assessment is completed once your checks and references have been returned and everybody's happy with that. And the assessment process is very much, is quite busy. There's lots of meetings and discussions with your assessing social worker so that the social worker can complete their assessment report. When the assessment report is done, it is presented to our fostering panel. Now, the fostering panel is a group of interested people, independent people, social work professionals, children who have left care, and current foster carers also sit on the panel. And the panel will ask you and the assessing social worker questions about your assessment. So at this stage in the journey, the applicant and the social worker go to the panel, and they might have questions to ask about the assessment. Following the meeting, the panel then makes a recommendation, and the next step in the process is our lead officer for children's social care then looks at the assessment and the findings of the fostering panel, and it's the lead officer's role to make a final decision on your application. And so this is the end of the formal application process, and once you've been assessed as suitable for fostering, you will join our team, and then you become an approved foster carer. So the next step in the journey is waiting for your first placement, first child to be placed with you. You will receive a phone call within a few days or weeks possibly from the team that places children with foster carers. And this is an important conversation because that team will share with you the information that they have that they've received about the child or the children that they wish to place, including the reason they've come into care, what the future plan might be, what the arrangements might be for the child to have contact with their family, where they attend school or nursery, what their likes and dislikes are, and any other information that will help you to make the decision about whether or not you could care for that particular child. And so ends the journey. And so I hope that was clear. And if you have questions, obviously you can submit those later. So thank you for that. And I will now hand over to Yvonne or Marianne.
Hello, everybody. My name is Marianne Burt, and I am the family finding social worker in our team. I'm family finding for children that are waiting for a long-term fostering family where adoption is not an option anymore. Well, like Yvonne was saying previously, we are desperately in need for foster carers who can and who are willing to make a long-term commitment to children until they move into independency or sometimes beyond. Currently, we have more or less 50 children that are in need of a long-term foster placement. Some of these children are in a short-term foster placement, or others are in a residential unit. As you can imagine, all children that have come into care have a very difficult start in life, but that does not mean that they don't have potential and that they all have their own interest and quirky characters. Our children all deserve a placement where they can feel safe, loved and cared for, and where they are helped to reach their full potential. If you feel you can do it, please get in touch with us, as I feel Lambeth is the best. Thank you. Back to Yvonne, I think.
Thank you, Suzanne, for a very informative presentation, and Marianne also for your presentation, because, you know, like I said at the beginning, and like Marianne has said, we are foster carers who can offer a family to our children. I would like to now hand you over, Robert, to talk about his experiences of being a foster carer and what keeps him going, really. He'll tell you a bit more about the Lambeth Foster Care Association and Fostering Network as well.
Thank you, Yvonne. Good evening, everyone. This is my partner, Charles.
Hi there.
We've been together for 26 years. And in 2012, we had our civil partnership. In 2013, we went down the adoption journey with a different local authority, but that didn't work out. And then we thought about fostering, but because fostering had so many stigmas and mixed messages in the public, we weren't too sure. But eventually, we came across an independent fostering agency and we looked into it. We joined. We had some pretty good placements. And then eventually we met a young boy, age 7, a Lambeth child, and we started to think, well, actually, this child has a huge amount of potential, despite the place he was in at the time. And we weren't very happy with our independent fostering agency. We didn't feel they had the sort of right priorities, and they had slightly different agenda to us. And we wanted to make a difference to this child long term, and we realized fairly quickly that there was an attachment, and it was a good attachment, and that maybe if we were to move to Lambeth, perhaps we would get better support for ourselves, but also for our child. So we moved across after almost 5 years with an independent fostering agency.
Yes.
And we feel that we're very well supported. Within days of being approved, we went to a Lambeth award ceremony as guests. And we felt very embraced by all the other foster carers. And I think one of my fellow foster carers asked me more or less straight away if we would get involved with the Lambeth Foster Carers Association. And a bit overwhelmed and flattered, but we thought, well, let's find out more. And then when we went to a support group, there must have been over 50 foster carers there. And I felt that for the first time, I met my people in the sense that we could share experiences and talk about how difficult it is to be a foster carer 24/7 and always having to, almost make it up as you go along on occasions. But there was a whole wealth of people in the room, some who'd been caring for Lambeth for 15 or 20 years. And, that however difficult it can be, it is the most incredibly rewarding thing to do, to be able to just give some of your experiences and your love and so on to a vulnerable child who may not have had any sort of permanency or hugs, or we've had some placements that have been really quite complex and they were always meant to be temporary. But when you have the opportunity to take a child on, empowering them to help them make the right choices, to get them out of a special needs setting into a mainstream school, to be able to fight the battle to transition from primary to appropriate secondary, to get the support they need. And Charles and I have learned a lot about, putting together an educational healthcare plan, this, that, and the other. But with the training that we get all the time, and with all the support within the Lambeth Carers support group, we feel that if anything ever comes up that's challenging, we do ask our supporting social worker, but we've got this whole pool of experienced people who always have time and never say no.
So yeah, I mean, to echo Robert's list, so I mean, we don't hold back, and as I'm sure some of the social workers will attest, in asking. And it's important to ask your supporting social worker because they do have the experience. They've dealt with many types of children before. They may not have the exact right answer at that moment in time, but they do have that skill set to help you find the right answer or change an approach or whatever that might be with a child. So it's not, oh, you're not on your own at the end of the day. But, you're a foster carer, so it is also incumbent upon you to take that initiative and ask as well, and don't struggle. Yeah. And, because there is support there. And the training that is provided, as they've said, helps you build the competencies that you need, and also the knowledge to understand how children behave, whether they are whether it's emotional behaviour or physical behaviour. So it's all important. Yeah.
So one of the other things the LFCA does is that, apart from meeting regularly when we could, but for example, next week, Wednesday, we're hosting a Zoom meeting for all the foster carers. We have the Fostering Network coming to do a presentation, and they're going to remind us all what the membership does, how the legal helpline can support us if and when we need it. They're doing a tax workshop to help us do our annual tax return. So being a member of the Fostering Network, thanks to Lambeth, buying the subscription, etc., means that there's all these other networks, a lot of other support. So next week we'll have the opportunity for everybody to say how they're doing, and then we'll spend about an hour with just us exchanging kind of where we're at and what our challenges might be. And then we'll have the Fostering Network do a session. But then very often we get calls from individuals who are sometimes not quite sure whether they should go to the SSW or the child social worker, or so often we'll say, look at the handbook. So the LFCA works very hard every year to update the handbook, and Lambeth is one of the only local authorities. I know a lot of independent fostering agencies, don't have handbooks, but the handbook is a substantial document. It's almost like the Bible, because if there's a situation that you weren't expecting, the first thing you do is look in the handbook, and if the answer's not there, phone your SSW, and usually it's in the handbook, or you phone one of the other fellow carers. So the LFCA also has mentor carers. So these are foster carers who have got a lot of experience. So we take on several other new carers as they get approved, and we support them with as much as they want, whether it's weekly phone calls or call me whenever you like, and then they come to our group meetings and so on. So I think there's a number of other ways that the LFCA will continue to represent the majority of carers, but also management know that if things can be improved, then it's the role of the LFCA to work with Lambeth teams, be able to say, well, how about when our care experienced adults leave our care, how about they apply for jobs within Lambeth Council? How do we make that happen? So there's lots of really good innovative ways that we can connect everything up within the local authority and work in partnership so we get the best for our children and young people. And I think that's what everybody in the LFCA and Lambeth foster carers want to achieve. It's just the whole thing. It's not just, give me a bed, give me an education, but it's like, give me choices in life and let me be who I want to be. And I think that's what we all work hard to do.
Thank you very much, Charles and Robert. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you everybody for the presenting the information, and hopefully our guests will have a better understanding of not only the journey of becoming a foster carer, but also what some of the challenges are for foster carers, having heard Charles and Robert speak. I'd like to now move to asking whether you could submit your questions. We have got a few, so we can just go straight into questions and answers. And what I will do is just ask one of the team members or Charles and Robert to respond to questions that may be relevant to them. So we'll just proceed with that now then. Yeah, okay. The first question I have is, can I work full-time and be a foster carer? And can I introduce Shella for that question, please, to answer that question, please?
Hi there. My name is Shella and I work in the recruitment and assessment team. And one of the questions commonly asked is, can I work full-time and be a foster carer? Well, the simple answer to that question is yes, you can work full-time and become a foster carer. In fact, Lambeth is a place that's very welcoming of all people, whether you want to work part-time, full-time, or whether you don't work at all. Some of the things we would consider if you want to maintain your employment, working full-time and caring for one of our children or young people, is around having discussions, looking at maybe fostering an older child, a child that's more independent, that perhaps doesn't need the foster carer to be there at 3:30, 5:30 every day, and who can manage and manage that time a bit better. So certainly Lambeth are willing and open and able to accept foster carers who work full-time, part-time, or whether you don't work at all. Please do join us and we can have a conversation and discussion to make it work for you and us, and more importantly for our children. Thank you.
Thank you, Shella. Okay, I'm just looking at some of the questions. This is somebody who has asked a question about health check. Can you say more about what the health check is looking for? Can I ask Paula to answer that, please?
Hello, my name is Paula Smith, and I'm a social worker assessment and permanency and family planning team, and I have been here a number of years. But Suzanne in her presentation explained that we do a number of checks, and one of our checks would be a medical check. It's a form which we would ask you to have a conversation with your GP. This is usually making an appointment with the GP and explaining what it is for. They've seen so many of them, so they're used to answering the questions. And what it's about, we just need to know that you are robust enough because fostering can be very, very challenging and you need to be very energetic, especially given the age of the child that you're proposing to foster. We need to know that you're up to the task, really. And what we're looking for, it does not debar you if you've got health conditions. It's just about you being able to manage or to keep up with the task. And we're thinking about, for an example, if you were proposing fostering a baby, and we want to know that you'd be able to lift and fetch and be available for contact. Contact would be maybe 5 times a week, 7 times a week when you have to take the child to a contact center. We just need to know that you're healthy and fit. Our GP completes the form. There's a section for you to complete on the form, and it's called an adult health assessment form. And there are 3 sections, and there are sections that the social worker, your assessing social worker, will complete. A section that you will complete, and this is about your lifestyle, and it talks about sort of your diet, your life, whether you are alcohol intake, whether you're a smoker, and so on and so forth. And the 3rd section would be for your GP, and it's just pulling of information from your existing records on the GP has on you onto the document, and with all of that, it goes to our medical or local authority medical advisor, who she reviews the information and she gives the final say. She has the final say on whether you meet the criteria. And usually, most of our foster carers do. Some of them don't, unfortunately. But the evidence would be that you are not able to keep up to the task, and because, as you know, fostering can be very sort of energetic, very challenging. We need you to be around, or need to be available to take child to whatever activity they're involved with, not having to have to schedule or cancel because of an illness or something. So it's simple and straightforward, and we talk you through the processes really. When we have our initial conversation with you, we ask you, any health conditions, like you upfront with us, because chances are, if you're not, we'll find out anyway. So just I don't want you to be really alarmed about when you hear the word or use the word sort of health conditions. It's something that we can talk you through that process, and hopefully all will be well.
Just to add, Paula, that the health check is looking, as Paula said, to make sure that you are fit and healthy. We ourselves don't make that decision. It is down to our medical advisor, who will advise us as to whether or not you are healthy enough to foster. It is not our decision. Obviously, we're not medically trained, so it has to go through a medical person who will understand some of the technical descriptions of people's health condition. So just to kind of put that that on the table. The next question I've got is, I am thinking of renting a bigger property. Do you think that's a good idea, or can Lambeth Council help me with a property? Can I ask Suzanne to answer that question, please?
We, in the fostering team, we have no ability to influence housing provision. And so what we want is to see that when a foster care applies, that they've got ample room to foster presently. And if a person wants to change their accommodation in any way, we advise them to contact their housing provider, whoever that may be. So there's little we can do. However, when a foster carer is up and running, we can write a letter to advocate for that foster carer to have a change in their accommodation, and send that to the housing provider, whoever your housing provider is, in an attempt to encourage them to offer you something different. But that's a really good question, and you really need to. It's something to have a discussion with when you contact us and with your assessing social worker to see what, if anything, we can do.
Another question that's come up is, what sort of support will I have?
Well, once you're approved, then you get to know your supervising social worker. You will also get support from the child social worker. You also, so all the information that you get prior to the placement. Placement means that you've been matched with a child. The child staying with you is referred to as a placement. So the child social worker will spend time with you as well. So you discuss what the child's needs are. Obviously, the child's voice is included. Sometimes, particularly if it's a permanent match, then the process is a bit more it has a process, and it takes a bit more time, and you have the opportunity to get to know each other, get to know the child, and there's a transition made. So the child might arrive with their life story, work, and all those sorts of things. So you get to know them as much as possible. So it depends on the child and their needs. You would talk to the child social worker, so you know what you should and shouldn't get ready, and how much do you decorate the child's room, and if they're a bit older, maybe you should let them do it when they come to visit. There's lots of lovely ways of doing it, and making sure that the child, when they're coming to stay with you, that they're ready and not anxious and so on. And depending on the child's needs, there's different processes. You'd also, sorry, go on.
I was also going to say, when you go through the assessment, which is the bit prior to approval, your assessing social worker may well also through the discussions that you have between you and them, is highlight things that you might want to learn or study to help you in that process. So it is, there's that very initial support up front through the assessment. So the assessment is there for them to get to know you as foster carers, so that when they do the finding, the match should be as simple as possible.
Sorry.
Yeah. There's the assessment, and as Robert says, there's then the stages. There's your supervising social worker, and also the child social worker, which gives you that support as well. So it has been, we've been fortunate when we've enjoyed that support for our child.
But also the support comes through the training and work and being with other foster carers. So if you know that you're getting a child with special educational needs, then you're going to know what perhaps their assessment has said. If you know they have mild autism or some other sort of challenge, then you would be preparing yourself for that if you didn't have experience. So you would proactively find out as much as you can and ask your other fellow foster carers what worked for you. And sometimes you've got to change your parenting style, because whatever you thought was suitable for one child may not be for another. So there's a lot of other support that you get through not just online training, but just literally spending time with other foster carers. I think that for us has been the most, and we have a big support network.
It's being part of a mutual group.
Yeah, and we have our own support network. So we have a Lambeth child, but we live in Merton. So for us to go to Brixton, it's 40 minutes. It's pretty easy. but it's not realistic for me to say, oh, I just need 10 minutes, you know, can you just help me go up the shop with, you know, whatever. So we have a local support network, and then we have sort of a group of friends who we consider sort of the tribe, who, you know, the aunties and so on, who have a regular contact and come and see us and have specific roles and things. So I think as a foster carer, you have to think about who's your support network, and often the friends that you think will be fantastic with the kids and really loyal and all that, I think you'll find that most of them are too busy having cocktails, and you have to rethink, you know, who are the genuine ones. But also, your children go to school, they make friends. You know, you don't always choose who your adult friends are going to be if your children are making those support networks themselves. So you have to be adaptable and flexible. And if you're always thinking of the child at the center of what you're doing, then things fall into place for you. You just have to always want to be like a sponge and absorb, you know, other people's experiences and learn from others too.
That's really helpful. There's another question that's asked here, which says, we would be interested in fostering unaccompanied asylum-seeking children. Is this possible? And the answer is yes. We do need foster carers for unaccompanied asylum-seeking children. We need people from all different backgrounds in order to make sure that we are maintaining their religion and their cultural heritage as you know, as much as possible. And so that's definitely a gap that we have in Lambeth. Another question here. I would be fostering alone and do not have a spare room. I feel I definitely have the capacity to help. I'm just concerned with the space. Is there a way around this? I think I would say that it's very difficult for you to foster if you don't have a spare room, because the child needs to have a room of their own, or a room where they can go and be quiet and private if they wish to, but also it's just not practically appropriate, because some of our children, as you can imagine, there are boundary issues that are needing to be inputted for them, where maybe sleep time and eating time and waking up and going to school, these normal routines were not present. And part of helping children to get into a routine, helping them to integrate into family life, means that they should really have their own space within the family, so that everybody knows that they've got, you know, their position is clear, and people feel that they can come together in the living room, the kitchen, or wherever, but actually they've got their private space. This is an interesting question. If I try fostering and then realise fostering is not for me, can I stop? Can I put that question to Paula?
Yeah, yes, you can. You can. Fostering is I can explain it simply like this. Fostering is something that it starts off as an inquiry, interest. You've seen something on the television, fostering Fortnight now, and it really sort of piques an interest. It's something that you want to do. So you, not realizing or until it's explained to you, it can be very, very intrusive. We ask you, and the reason why we're intrusive is because looking for somebody we can entrust care of a vulnerable child, or any child for that matter, to be able to walk away at the end of the day and know that that child will be safe, especially when the child is coming from an unsafe environment. So a lot of people are deterred by the intrusiveness of the assessment, and halfway through in the beginning decide, yeah, this is not for me, and they wish to stop. And so yes, you can.
Thank you. There was another question for Robert and Charles, and it was Robert and Charles, what did you find was your biggest challenge when you started off fostering, and how did you overcome?
Okay, this is not to put you off, but when we were approved by an independent fostering agency on a Saturday, we were delighted and we celebrated. And they said, well, would you mind doing respite for 11 days? And we said, yeah, sure. Who is it? They said, oh, a 14-year-old girl. I said, yeah, sure, that can't be difficult. Well, she arrived on Monday, and within a week we had 12 police visits. But each time we followed the process, we felt supported. She came back, but by the 8th day, she stopped disappearing. She started to talk to us. She started, doing dinner, making dinner and engaging with us, etc. And she didn't want to leave, and we were very, very sad to leave her. But although it was a good ending, because it was our first experience, we were like, oh God, what do I do? So that was kind of the first one. But also, we did have quite a few other young women of the same age, and we just realized that 14-year-old girls are really, really clever. They know the system, and you've got to keep on your toes. But that was a steep learning curve, and then everything since then has been, much more manageable and very rewarding.
But again, we were approved on a Saturday and had our first placement on a Monday. But it is this supporting social worker, that
makes a difference,
which makes a difference, and guided us through that. Because if we hadn't, potentially it could have been disastrous. But so your supervising social worker is essential, and is part of your team at the end of the day to help you. And so without her, we wouldn't have got through.
Thank you. I'm only rushing because we've got so many questions and I want to get through as many as possible. So we need to make our answers really short. This question is really quite sweet, from a Letitia. Hi everyone, enjoying the sun lots today. Interested to find out if I'm eligible as a single woman and I work full time. Can I ask Shella to answer that very quickly?
Hi, yes. The answer to that question is yes, we would love to have you on board. We would love to speak to you. And as I said earlier, working full-time is not a bar to you becoming a foster carer. If you decide to join Lambeth, which I hope you will do, throughout the assessment, we will talk to you about your job, about flexibility, how we can work together to have a child placed in your care and for you to continue working. And just very quickly, being a single carer is not a bar at all. We have many single foster carers. In fact, I used to work in the fostering support team, and half of the foster carers I supported were single women and single men, and they did an absolutely fabulous job. So yes, Letitia, we would welcome you. So please do sign up and come talk to us.
Okay, thanks, Shella. One question for Marianne. And it's, can I keep a child until they are ready to leave home? That's to Marianne.
Yes, we would love you to keep a child longer than past their 16 or 18 years, because we would like you to help them to go into independency, to help them into independency. So yes, the answer is yes.
This is a very quick one. Can you take a child on holiday abroad? And the answer is yes. Fingers up there. We encourage that because if the child is going to be part of your family, then of course they should go on holiday with you. And it is the social worker who would organise passports, etc. Is there such a thing as respite fostering, i.e. weekends and holidays and emergencies? Yes, there is. We in Lambeth do use foster carers, but often what we really encourage is for foster carers to use their support network, because the child hopefully will be familiar with those people within the foster carers network, and therefore going to that respite carer or the respite carer moving into the foster carer's home would not be too much of a disruption for the child or young person. So yes, we do. I think we've got a chance for one more. Okay, there was one from Deo and Claire. Deo and Claire asking, we are very interested in fostering, however we have young children and feel we only have the capacity for short-term or respite. Is this something that Lambeth is interested in? I think I'll answer that quickly, if you don't mind, panel. Yes, we would be interested, but obviously we need to have a conversation with you to find out exactly how old your children are, the ages of the children that you would be interested in fostering, and that conversation would take place at the inquiry. So if you really want to pursue this, please give us a call and we can have a conversation about it, and get to a much more detailed information for you to consider whether or not fostering is something you'd like to do. We are coming to the end. I am so sorry. We had masses and masses of questions and we've not been able to answer all of them. We will try to. I hope we'll be able to do that and we'll have the capacity to do that. But as I've said, it's now nearly 5 to 8, so we will need to wrap it up. So thank you everybody, panel, for answering all the questions that were put to you so clearly. And I'd like to thank our audience, our participants, for taking the time to participate in this webinar. We really appreciate the fact that you've taken the time out of, just to come and ask questions. I'm so sorry if you've asked questions and we've not been able to answer them. I hope that you will consider fostering, whether it's for yourselves becoming foster carers, or maybe there are people in your network that you've thought, they might be interested in fostering. Please, please, please spread the word, and thank you for taking part in what's been a really interesting conversation with you. Thank you very much.